Okay, so let's be honest for a second. Personal finance can feel like really overwhelming sometimes, right? It's like, where do you even start? There's just so much information out there, so many different opinions, so many strategies, and it's easy to feel like you're, you know, drowning in it all. But today, we're going to kind of take a different approach. We're going to do a deep dive into the psychology of money instead of getting bogged down with all those complicated formulas and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So think of this as like a shortcut to understanding not just like your finances, but your actual relationship with money.
That's a really good way to put it. We're not going to be, diving into spreadsheets or interest rates today. Really, we're going to be exploring how our minds work when it comes to money. And honestly, that's often the key to making smarter choices.
I love that. And to guide us on this journey, we're going to be looking at The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Have you read this one?
Oh, yeah. It's become kind of a modern classic for good reason.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, Housel just has this way of making finance not just understandable, but actually like relatable, even entertaining.
He really does. Like, he can explain the most complex financial concept
Yeah.
in a way that, like, anyone can understand.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way that's just really engaging.
Totally. And I think what's so valuable about this book is it's not just about like learning the technical stuff. It's about understanding why we do what we do with money.
It gets at the heart of it, like why
Okay.
we make the decisions we make. And I
Yeah.
think that's so much more important than just, knowing like specific investment strategies.
100%. So our mission today is to really pull out the most valuable, like mind-shifting insights from this book and kind of help you, the listener, understand your own relationship with money a little bit better. Because here's the thing. Once you understand the psychology behind your financial decisions, you can actually start making choices that really align with your values and your goals.
Yeah. It's like shining a light on all those unconscious biases and patterns that might be like secretly holding you back.
Totally. And one of the things that I found so eye-opening in this book is the idea that luck and risk play a way bigger role in finance than we often give them credit for. It's not always about, hard work or making the quote-unquote right choices. Sometimes it's just about being in the right place at the right time or even, the wrong place at the wrong time.
It's so true. And it's kind of a humbling realization
It is.
when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, think back on your own financial journey.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been times where luck, either good or bad, played a role?
Oh, for sure.
Like maybe an unexpected inheritance or, sudden job loss.
Right.
Or maybe there were times when you took a risk that paid off big time.
Well,
Or maybe one that didn't work out so well.
yeah, you win some, you lose some. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think recognizing the role of chance, it can help us be more grateful for our successes, but also more compassionate towards those who might be struggling.
I love that because it's so easy to get caught up in judging other people's financial situations without really considering all the different factors that might have contributed to where they are.
Yeah. We often just see like the tip of the iceberg, the outcome, but not the whole story.
Exactly. Okay. Now let's shift gears for a second and talk about something a little more exciting. Compounding.
Ooh, yes.
This is where it gets good. Housel uses some seriously amazing examples in the book to illustrate the power of letting your money grow over time.
It's like magic.
It really is. It's like planting the tiny little seed that eventually grows into
Like a giant oak tree.
perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not about getting rich quick. It's about consistency. It's about patience. Imagine reinvesting your gains year after year, letting them snowball. That's exactly how Warren Buffett, who, we all know he's one of the most successful investors of all time. That's how he built his wealth.
Wow.
And you know what's crazy?
Why?
Most of his wealth came after he turned 60. That's incredible. It really just shows you the power starting early and letting time work its magic.
It really does. It's like even small amounts invested consistently can grow exponentially over time.
It's amazing. But here's a twist that I definitely wasn't expecting. Housel argues that saving consistently matters more than your income level when it comes to building wealth.
Yeah, I know, right? It's kind of counterintuitive.
It is.
But when you think about it, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like imagine two people. One person is earning a really high salary.
Yeah.
But they're spending it all.
Okay.
And then you got another person who's earning less, but they're diligently saving a portion of their income.
Got it.
Who do you think is going to end up with more financial security? in
Yeah.
the long run.
Yeah. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep.
Exactly. And how you make that money work for you.
It reminds me of something my grandma always used to say.
Yeah.
She would always say, money talks, but wealth whispers. It's so true. It's not about, you know,
Yeah.
flashy spending. It's about building that solid foundation for your future.
And that brings us to another
Yeah.
really crucial point, which is the impact of our personal experiences
Mm-hmm.
on our relationship with money. You just mentioned your grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Our upbringing, our family history, the financial climate we grew up in, all these factors can really shape how we view and manage money.
Oh, absolutely. Like for me, for example, I grew up in a family where saving was like a really big deal. Like every week, I'd put a portion of my allowance into my little piggy bank. It wasn't much, but it really instilled in me the sense of responsibility and like delayed gratification. And looking back, I can see how those early experiences
Yeah.
really laid the groundwork for my financial habits today.
It's amazing how those early experiences create almost like a financial blueprint that we often carry with us into adulthood.
Yeah.
It might make us more risk averse or maybe more prone to impulsive spending. It really just depends.
Right.
So, what about you? What stands out to you about how your past might be influencing your current relationship with money?
Yeah, it's so fascinating how those early money messages, even subtle ones, can stick with us. But it's interesting, Housel doesn't just leave us dwelling on the past. He also dives into how our behavior, more than just knowledge, influences our financial success.
Oh, absolutely. He debunks this myth that you need to be like a financial genius to manage your money well.
Right, right.
It's more about cultivating good habits and, making consistent, thoughtful choices over time.
So, okay, it's less about knowing all those fancy financial terms and more about actually having the discipline to stick to a budget. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. You could know everything there is to know about investing, but if you can't control your impulses or delay gratification, well, it won't get you very far, right?
That's so true. It's like that classic marshmallow experiment.
Yeah, exactly. It's those less tangible qualities. Patience, discipline, the ability to control your emotions when the market, takes a dip. Those are the things that really matter.
It's funny. It's like knowing you should eat healthy and exercise, but actually doing it consistently is a whole different ballgame.
Oh, that's such a good analogy. It really highlights the gap between knowledge and action.
Totally.
And that gap, that's where a lot of people stumble when it comes to money.
For sure. And speaking of those long-term goals, Housel paints this really compelling picture of financial freedom as the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And he's not talking about being a millionaire or having like a fancy car or anything. It's more about having the freedom to control your time and live life on your own terms.
Yes, he makes such a good point about that. It's not about accumulating endless wealth. It's about having enough to pursue your passions, spend time with loved ones, experience life to the fullest.
Right. And I think that ties into this idea of defining what enough means to you. It's such a powerful concept, because it shifts the focus away from external comparisons and towards internal fulfillment.
Absolutely. It's about aligning your financial goals with your values and priorities, not with like society's definition of success.
Which, of course, is easier said than done in a world where we're constantly being told what we should have and what we should be achieving.
Yeah.
It's tough. And I think Housel really hits the nail on the head when he talks about the dangers of comparison.
Ugh, the comparison trap. It's a universal struggle.
It really is.
Social media is like the worst for that.
Oh, wait, tell me about it.
You see everyone's like highlight reels.
Yeah.
They're perfectly curated lives.
Right, and it's so easy to start feeling like you're falling behind.
Exactly.
I'm definitely guilty of that. I catch myself scrolling through social media and thinking, oh, they just bought a new house. Or, I should be further along in my savings goals, even though our circumstances are completely different.
It's so easy to get caught up in that, and it can be really damaging. And it often leads to lifestyle inflation.
Oh, yeah. Explain that one.
That's when your spending just naturally increases as your income rises.
Yeah.
So you end up no better off, really. You're constantly striving to keep up with, like, the Joneses, as they say, but you never actually feel like you've arrived.
It's like that hedonic treadmill. You just keep running and running, but never actually getting anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we break free from this comparison game?
Mm.
How do we stop measuring our success against others and define our own version of enough?
Yeah. How do we do that?
Well, Housel suggests focusing on what truly matters to you. Like, what are your values? What are your priorities? What actually brings you joy and fulfillment?
Mm-hmm.
Once you have a clear sense of what matters most, It becomes easier to, you know, filter out the noise and make choices that align with those values.
So it's about creating a life that feels rich and meaningful to you, regardless of what everyone else is doing, regardless of what society says you should be doing.
Precisely. And sometimes that might mean making different choices than those around you.
Yeah.
It might mean driving an older car, living in a smaller house, or, taking fewer vacations. But if those choices allow you to, like, really live in alignment with your values, then they're not really sacrifices. They're investments in a life that feels fulfilling.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, now for a slightly less uplifting but equally important concept, the seduced by wealth trap. Housel uses some really captivating and sometimes cautionary tales of people who, like, took huge risks in pursuit of quick
Oh,
riches.
yeah. He really highlights how intoxicating the allure of fast wealth can be. We see all these stories of like overnight successes, lottery winners, people who, made a killing in the stock market.
Right.
And it's tempting to think, well, maybe I could do that too.
Totally. It's like there's that little voice in the back of your head whispering, what if I just took this one big risk? It could change everything.
Exactly. But as Housel reminds us, those stories, those are often the exception, not the rule. In the real world, slow, steady, disciplined growth, that's what's more likely to lead to lasting financial well-being.
So it's about resisting those get rich quick schemes and focusing on building wealth gradually and sustainably.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true financial security comes from a solid foundation of good habits,
Hmm.
not like risky bets or, hoping to win the lottery.
Right, right.
Which might not be as glamorous, but it's a lot more reliable.
And it probably brings a lot more peace of mind,
Oh,
too.
for sure. It
Wow.
definitely does. And honestly, it's probably a lot less stressful in the long run. Speaking of things that can cause financial stress, though, let's talk about market volatility. I mean, I think we've all felt that little pang of anxiety, right, when we see our investments dip, even if we, like, intellectually know it's supposed to be a long-term game.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally natural to feel uneasy when you see your hard-earned money seemingly just, like, vanish overnight,
Yeah.
even if you understand, on a logical level, that the market goes up and down. Yeah.
But Housel, he has some really reassuring words for anyone who's ever, like, felt their heart skip a beat during a market downturn.
Okay, good. I like reassuring.
He really emphasizes that volatility, it's just like a natural part of market.
Yeah.
It's not something to be feared, it's something to be expected. You could even say embraced.
Okay, easier said than done, right? But I guess if we understood, like, why markets are so volatile, maybe it wouldn't be so scary.
I think you're right. Understanding the why can definitely help. Think of it this way. The market is basically this giant reflection of everyone's hopes and fears and expectations about the future.
Okay.
So when good news hits, like a new invention or a company that's exceeding expectations, people get excited, they buy, prices go up.
Yeah.
But when bad news comes along, a recession, a political crisis, people get nervous, they sell, prices go down.
Right.
It's like this big emotional roller coaster.
Okay, so it's not necessarily that the underlying value of these companies is actually changing so drastically all the time, right? It's more about how people are reacting to the news.
You got it. And as humans, we're emotional creatures. So those reactions, they can be pretty dramatic,
Mm.
which is why we see these like huge swings in the market. But here's the important thing. Over the long term, those short-term fluctuations, they tend to even out.
Okay, so really what Housel's saying is don't panic and sell everything when the market takes a dip, right? Just ride it out.
Exactly. Panicking and making these impulsive decisions during downturns, it's usually the worst thing you can do.
Makes sense.
Remember the power of compounding we were talking about before? Well, that power works best when you stay invested for the long haul, even when things get, a little bumpy.
So it all circles back to those key traits again, patience and discipline. They're not just important for, like, saving and investing. They're essential for actually weathering those market storms.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's funny, as we've been talking about all these different concepts, it really strikes me how much they all just keep coming back to that same core idea, the one Housel keeps hammering home. Understanding your own psychology is the key to making smarter financial choices. It's not just about the numbers, it's about understanding the why behind your decisions.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing our biases, our emotional triggers, all the often irrational ways we think about money.
Right.
We're not always going to make perfectly rational decisions, and that's okay. The key is to just be aware of those tendencies. and then, try to develop strategies to kind of mitigate their impact.
So for a listener out there who's maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this talk about psychology and money and all this stuff, what's the one piece of advice you'd leave them with?
Hmm. I would say ask yourself a simple question, but it's a profound one. What does financial freedom truly mean to me? Not what society tells me it should mean. Not what my parents told me it should mean. What does it mean in my heart? And once you have that clear vision of what you're working towards, the steps to get there will become a lot clearer.
It's about creating a life that feels rich and meaningful to you, regardless of what everyone else is doing or what society says you should be doing.
You got it. And the good news is you don't need to be a financial expert to do this. You just need a little self-awareness, a willingness to learn, and a commitment to making choices that, really support your overall well-being.
So well said. I think that's a really empowering message. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be aware.
Exactly. And remember, financial freedom is within your reach. Start by understanding yourself, and the rest will follow.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the psychology of money. It's been such a pleasure exploring these really fascinating concepts with you today.
The pleasure was all mine. It's been a great conversation.
And to our listener, remember, you don't need to be a financial expert to make smart choices. Just be a little more self-aware and a little more intentional. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.